This is SBS World News with Janice Peterson. Good evening. The storm system behind Cyclone Debbie is tonight causing a flooding emergency in southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales. Some areas have been warned to expect up to half a metre of rain. Thousands of people have been ordered to evacuate. Many areas are already under a flood alert and conditions will worsen. The Queensland government made the unprecedented decision to close all schools in the threatened region today and tomorrow. Businesses were advised to shut their doors at midday. SBS reporter Manny Tsigas joins us now live from Chinderah in northern New South Wales. So Manny, what's the scene like there?
Good evening, Janice. Well, southeast Queensland and parts of northern New South Wales were told to expect a deluge today, and as you can see, that's exactly what they got. Chinderah is just one of several townships along the Tweed River which have been issued with flood evacuation warnings, and the Bureau of Meteorology is warning that later tonight the worst of the rain is yet to come. Over the border in Queensland, the scenes have been much worse, with the SES receiving around 3,500 calls for help. Driving south, the remnants of Debbie were as ruthless as they were relentless. A cyclone no more, but its aftermath proving worse than anticipated.
It's been a very frantic morning, very wet.
Quick as I've seen it in years. It really is, and we've been here a long time.
After dodging death up north, authorities were desperate to avoid fatalities as the massive storm system tracked south.
We saw what happened 5 or 6 years ago when we had the summer of disasters. Debbie's got a sting in the tail, and it's going to affect all of Queensland and potentially into New South Wales.
Brisbane woke up to lightning and downpours, the torrential rain just the tip of the iceberg, the city receiving more than 200 millimetres in 24 hours. As the deluge dragged on, the demand for sandbags was insatiable. Brisbane City Council had arranged for 500 tonnes of sand to be turned into 40,000 sandbags. Those had run out by lunchtime.
We're producing sandbags at the rate of around 4,000 an hour with our 4 sandbag producing machines.
The unprecedented decision was made to close all schools today and tomorrow over a large section of Queensland's southeast, from Agnes Waters to south of the New South Wales border and west to Nanango.
We know it's inconvenient that we're shutting schools at a late notice, but we'd rather do that than risk one child's life.
Flash flooding was the primary concern, and rightly so. The rising waters left some stranded and others in need of rescue. Sporting grounds, not just a washout, but well underwater. Cars were waterlogged, dozens of roads cut off. Public transport was free to stop people from getting behind the wheel.
If you don't have to be on the roads, please don't be on the roads. And if it's flooded, forget it. Look after vulnerable neighbours, check in with them, make sure that they're safe.
But not everyone was listening. Water skiing from cars at Emerald Lakes and river surfing in Murwillumbah, the type of activities authorities were hoping to avoid. While urging caution about flash flooding, authorities were playing down fears of overcapacity in dams, reassuring people not to expect the devastation of 6 years ago when releases from the Wivenhoe Dam caused widespread flooding in Brisbane.
This is not comparable, Pat, to the 2011 situation. Let's be really clear about that. We believe it's absolutely manageable.
In northern New South Wales, people are bracing as the storm nudges a second state.
This time it's for real. It's fair dinkum. We're going to get a flood. We've got our preparations in full swing.
To keep as many things as possible dry during the big wet.
So Manny, what are they expecting there tonight and tomorrow?
Well, Janice, speaking to a few of the authorities in Chinderah just a little while ago, they told us that the conditions there are expected to worsen later tonight. Being next to the Tweed River, they're expecting the high tide to move in at around midnight to 1 a.m. Tomorrow morning, bringing with it some pretty severe floods with it as well. And just about 20 kilometres up this road behind me is the town of Murwillumbah, which this afternoon was issued with an evacuation order. And the Tweed River around that area is also expected to reach severe levels at around 1 o'clock as well. There has been an evacuation centre set up there in town for what is bound to be a very long evening for residents.
Indeed, that's Manny Tsigas there in Chinderah. This is SBS World News with Janice Peterson. Good evening. Torrential rain has flooded towns and cities in southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales. 20,000 people were ordered to evacuate in New South Wales and thousands more in Queensland, as rising river systems also threaten communities. More than half a metre of rain fell in some areas as the remnants of tropical Cyclone Debbie passed out to sea. Dangerous conditions are hampering flood efforts. And northern New South Wales has been declared a disaster zone, including the town of Lismore. Well, first to New South Wales, and reporter Manny Tsigas joins us now from the flood zone near Chinderah in northern New South Wales. Manny, we're hearing reports that a body's been found at South Murwillumbah. What can you tell us?
Good evening, Janice. Well, a short time ago, New South Wales Police were able to confirm that a body of a woman has been discovered about 20 kilometres south of Murwillumbah. She disappeared late last night, overnight at a property in Upper Burringbar, and she was discovered at about 8 o'clock this morning by a family member. Now, earlier today, the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian declared the Lismore and Tweed regions a disaster, but has thanked SES volunteers for all of their hard work over the past few days. And disaster relief will be made available to those communities as floodwaters continue to rise in some areas. Devastating floodwaters leave a trail of destruction through the city of Lismore in northern New South Wales. The Wilson River peaked at 11.5 metres, the highest in over 40 years, breaking the city's levee for the first time since it was built 12 years ago. The unprecedented deluge trapping cars and leaving residents stranded. Local businesses preparing for the worst.
I can't afford to take the risk. If they say it's coming at 11:05, I'm packing up.
Emergency services say they've been pushed to their limits, the treacherous conditions hampering rescue efforts.
300 flood rescues in the area already. Thousands of calls for assistance are being dealt with. Lots of the areas are inaccessible.
This is a serious weather condition, a serious flooding situation. People's lives are in danger, including all the volunteers who are out there supporting the community on the ground.
Early this morning, residents in Chinderah were wading through already deep waters, waiting for the Tweed River's high tide at around lunchtime. Many choosing to stay overnight despite warnings to evacuate.
The wind was insane. The noise was full on. The rain. It would be heavy 1 minute and then it'd ease up for a little.
About 10 o'clock.
Others left with whatever they could carry or ferry.
Disappointed, but my attitude has to be that I've looked on some of the people with Cyclone Debbie from the other day and they're worse off than me.
SES crews were kept busy rescuing residents from a nearby car park. Unable to tow his camper van, William Short decided to remain inside, despite the waters lapping at his door.
It's only come up about 1.5 inches, 2 inches over the floor, so it's not as bad as it looks. Just wait and see what happens, that's all I can do.
As the day progressed, the waters kept rising, cutting off nearby highways. On this side of the M1 highway coming out of Chinderah, as you can see, most of the lanes are completely flooded. The only one that's still open to a select few cars which are being led through is on the far right. But on the other side here, heading into Chinderah, it's even worse. The highway is completely flooded and it's been cordoned off by police. It doesn't look like anybody's going to be heading out anytime soon. And what's worse is that high tide still hasn't arrived. Kevin Damsma has been trying to reach his home in Condong after feeling the brunt of ex-Cyclone Debbie in Brisbane.
My neighbour rang me this morning at about 3 o'clock in the morning and said it had gone through the house, which has never happened before.
Further west, cane fields have been almost completely swallowed up. In the distance, the towns of Tumbulgum and Murwillumbah, isolated by floodwater. This family finally brought to safety after a terrifying night waiting for the storms to subside.
Our little place is completely under. Yeah, so had to get out.
Did you manage to recover anything?
No, just his stuff pretty much and what we're wearing.
In nearby Balambal, the floodwaters were so severe, the car park of a local sports club was torn apart and strewn across their oval nearby.
That's a first. I've never seen that. I've witnessed now, this is my third flood down here that I've witnessed, and this is the worst.
Despite early evacuation efforts, many residents in the region remain stranded. New South Wales Emergency Services are urging those people to put white sheets on their roof and to steer clear of the surging waters.
So Manny, what's the latest on the situation north of the border in Queensland?
Well, Janice, thousands of residents have been evacuated. The Logan River has exceeded levels not seen since 1991, and fresh evacuation orders have been placed for parts of Logan City, south of Brisbane and north of the Gold Coast, as SBS correspondent Stefan Armbruster reports.
In the deluged Gold Coast hinterland, evacuations across the swollen Logan River began early and showed no signs of letting up. Among those happy to be back on dry land, a family of 6 with their 2 dogs.
Just watching it rise up, it just got really scary.
The extent of the flooding, easiest to comprehend from the skies. Just peeking through the muddied inundation, homes, sheds, a ute and even a bus. The scene's surreal. Here, people stand on a lawn, now encircled with a temporary inland lake. A truck depot also cut off, and a pie shop lost underneath gardens, crops and livestock.
We think we've lost all of our cattle.
That's heartbreaking, all of your cattle.
Absolutely, and there was a little calf born yesterday and she'll be gone.
The rapidly rising torrent south of Brisbane, the result of rainfalls as high as 600 millimetres over 24 hours in some areas. The Albert River has hit its highest ever recorded level and more than 100 homes have been inundated. The Logan River is still rising and hundreds more could be swamped. The excess water isn't the only element Mother Nature is throwing at the region.
You can feel it now, the wind's getting up. Our next big risk is as this wind comes through that with so much wet ground we're going to have trees coming down and that causes another round of hazards.
Further north, the operation to clean up areas that took the full force of Cyclone Debbie pushed on. A key priority, the distribution of clean drinking water and essential food.
The cyclone wasn't too bad, but the aftermath was, this is terrible. That's like a third world country.
Also in high demand, fuel, with people facing long queues to fill up.
My light's been on for the last 2 days, so this is, if I don't get fuel now, I probably won't make it home.
The cleanup will take months, and the cost will be in the many hundreds of millions of dollars. In Beenleigh, Stefan Armbruster, SBS World News.
Manny, what can residents in flood zones expect over the weekend?
Well, Janice, residents below the Gold Coast's Hines Dam are being warned that a wall of water is heading straight towards them, the levels rising about 6 metres above the spillway. And residents in Beenleigh have also been told to leave as the Albert River continues to rise towards levels not seen in nearly 130 years. Janice, back to you.
Good evening. Torrential rain has flooded towns and cities in southeast Queensland and across the state's southern border. Northern New South Wales has been declared a disaster zone, including the town of Lismore. The Tweed River is due to peak in the coming hours. Our reporter Manny Tsigas sent this report from the flood zone near the town of Chinderah.
New South Wales Police tonight have confirmed that they discovered a body of a woman about 20 kilometres south of Murwillumbah. Police say that she went missing last night at a flooded property in Upper Baringbah, but was discovered this morning at about 8 a.m. by a family member. Earlier today, New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian said that the Tweed and Lismore regions were both disasters, but has thanked SES crews and volunteers for all of their very hard work over the past few days. Now tonight, here on the outskirts of Chinderah, SES volunteers are working together with the Army to evacuate several people from this flooded township, and they're once again renewing their call for people to stay away from the floodwaters, to not drive through them or walk through them. As night fell, SES crews worked in tandem with the Army to evacuate dozens of residents from Chinderah, among them a 3-month-old baby boy and an elderly woman treated by paramedics.
Just no one can move. Our neighbours are in our house. We've lost furniture. We've lost us. Just not very good.
We actually just sort of prepared, prepped things, and then we made our move in the afternoon.
This is SBS World News with Lee Lin Chin.
Good evening. Tonight, 2 people are dead and at least 4 are missing as the devastating flood crisis continues in 2 states. In southeast Queensland, rising floodwaters at Logan have reached their highest levels in decades. And Rockhampton in central Queensland is bracing for what could be the worst flood in almost a century. In northern New South Wales, communities downstream from Lismore are now facing a new flood threat. We cross now to SBS reporter Manny Tsigas, who's near Toombulgum, which is on the Tweed River. Manny, what can you update us with?
Good evening, Leland. Well, the threat is tracking further south here in New South Wales from Lismore to Woodburn. The SES has rescued around 400 people from the floodwaters, and evacuation orders remain for about 30,000 people throughout northern New South Wales. But there is some good news to come out of tonight with one of the hardest hit towns, Lismore. Their waters are finally starting to recede. SES crews paddle through the streets of Lismore searching for people trapped.
Can anyone hear me?
They come across motel residents safe on the upper levels, but after 2 days without power or supplies, they want out.
We've never been in a flood before, been in a cyclone and a fire, but not a flood. We just want to get home.
But others vow to stick it out.
Got a freezer full of food.
The SES not just rescuing people, but also reuniting this man with his dogs. With no food or water, the dogs were evacuated to dry land. While the floodwaters are beginning to recede in Lismore, it will be days before evacuees can return.
The destruction that will be left behind, we can't anticipate at this stage, but there'll be plenty of mud, plenty of things that need to be cleaned and obviously resurrected as soon as possible.
Across northern New South Wales, many roads remain closed. A couple's car was swept away while driving over a causeway in the Hunter Valley. The 74-year-old husband managed to escape, but the body of a 64-year-old woman was later found in the submerged car. And late yesterday, a woman's body was found in floodwaters near Murwillumbah.
We grieve for those two women who were lost in the floods.
The communities of Chinderah, Woodburn and Ballina remain on alert. The Indigenous community of Cabbage Tree Island has been ordered to evacuate, and residents remain trapped in Murwillumbah.
Looks like our business went under our factory by at least a metre.
Jamie Hart has been trying to reach his mother-in-law for days.
It's pretty bad. Her car's been washed away and there's a few houses lost and stores and stuff like that.
But some didn't have the patience to wait. So the people in this ute here behind me originally had a plan to put one of their friends in front of the ute and walk, and then they'd follow behind just to see how deep the waters were. But just around this corner here, they say that the water suddenly dropped about 2 metres deep. And they're saying that they believe that parts of the road have been completely washed away. They then put in their canoe, and once they put their paddles into the water, it didn't even touch the ground. So they decided against it, got back in the ute, and now they're trying to find another way in. Further along in the town of Carrambin, earth-moving equipment was brought in to replace a road washed away by an impromptu river. In Queensland, hundreds of people have been forced to flee their homes near the Logan River as it peaked this afternoon at 10.5 metres. But 4 people remain missing in Queensland. A 50-year-old man failed to meet friends north of Brisbane. A 77-year-old man is missing near Logan, while a bushwalker has been missing for 4 days in the Lamington National Park. Authorities yet to release details about a 4th man.
It's going to be tough. There's going to be some people emotionally that will be broken from this.
And Rockhampton is bracing for the worst flooding in a century, with the Fitzroy River expected to peak at 9.5 metres on Wednesday. Now, Leland, the SES has once again issued warnings for people not to try and return to their homes unless it is safe to do so, and they're telling people not to try and drive through floodwaters like this one here that you see here behind me. We've actually seen multiple four-wheel drives try and get through here over the past couple of hours, and they've turned back and come back through here within a matter of about 15 or 20 minutes. The only vehicle that we have seen come through here successfully was a tractor, so that gives you an idea of just how deep some of these waters are getting.
The flood emergency in Queensland and northern New South Wales continues, but the devastation left behind is becoming clearer. 4 people are confirmed dead and 3 are missing. In Rockhampton, in central Queensland, thousands of people are being urged to evacuate, and the army has been deployed as the city prepares for its worst flood in 60 years. South of Brisbane, the Logan River peaked at levels not seen since 1974. Reporter Manny Tsigas joins us from Waterford now, a community on the Logan River. Manny, how extensive is the damage there?
Good evening, Lillian. Well, just to give you an idea of where Logan City is, it's a community that's that's situated between the Gold Coast and Brisbane, and it's a community that has experienced flooding before. As you said before, the Logan River here reached a peak of about 10 metres last night, which is just shy of the levels which were reached during flooding back in 1974. So it has been a massive situation unfolding here throughout the past few days, but now another state of emergency is unfolding, this time further north in Rockhampton. Almost a week since Cyclone Debbie struck the coast, Rockhampton is preparing for the worst. A huge wall of water is on the way. The Army has been called in.
Either late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, with the prediction at this stage of some 9.4 metres. This one is going to be a big one.
Down the coast, huge sections of Logan remain underwater, the Logan River peaking overnight. Surrounding creeks exploded their banks, swallowing up roads, power lines, even backyards. Lynette Forbes' family refusing to go near their submerged boat and camper van. Snakes lurk beneath the surface.
So I feel sick. We've been awake most of the night because we were just watching the water come up the yard, really.
In Eagleby, clean-up efforts have begun. Some residents watch the waters steadily rise. The lower level of Rob Spencer's house now a muddy mess, destroying most of his lifelong collection of KISS memorabilia.
Lost more than what's here now, so I've lost more than what I saved. So yeah, I think I would value it at probably $25,000 or stuff down here.
In nearby Benlee, one neighbourhood now resembles an island. The water's submerging houses in this low-lying section of Kokoda Street, cutting off road access further down.
I'm lucky, but many aren't. You know, many got wet houses and lost a lot of things, you know. I just lost a few tools and that, which doesn't matter.
So as you can see from that line on that fence behind me, that's as high as the water levels got this morning. At around 4:30 a.m, it suddenly dropped by about 3 or 4 inches, and that was a huge relief to some of the residents on the border of that water. But for this house and for other houses a bit further down, it was obviously cold comfort. Those houses have already gone completely under. Residents here have also been telling me that they've been woken up in the middle of the night by people still trying to drive through waters like this, and they're saying that in the middle there the drop is around 4 metres, so any car that tries to go through there is going to get submerged as well. Authorities repeatedly warning people not to drive in floodwaters. The only way to get across is to walk through a series of back fences. We're shown around one house where the rear garden and playground is completely underwater.
We live here for about 24 years, and this is the first time that's going up the water.
The devastation across our state is huge. It is going to take months to repair.
Over the border in New South Wales, a 45-year-old caravan park resident in Murwillumbah was found dead, and there are fears for others as the water flows away. Locals getting together to help each other out in any way they can.
They need people down here. People power in these houses, clearing stuff out.
Further south, the city of Lismore has been trashed. Water has subsided from the main street, revealing ruined businesses. Costs to repair and replace stock are expected to go into the tens of millions. Homes remain isolated, roads cut off by floodwaters. The State Emergency Service appealing to the Premier to fast-track much-needed funding. And Leland, the recovery efforts are also taking place at Airlie Beach, which is one of the hardest hit areas here in Queensland. The recovery effort there is supposed to take months, if not years. More aid and supplies have arrived courtesy of Defence Forces as part of Operation Queensland Assist, a welcome sight for what has been a long and tumultuous time across 2 states.